I'm Maya Trabulsi. Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, a leadership shakeup in Tijuana. The city's police chief is asked to step down. San Diegans stock up on gas, getting ready for an expected price hike next week.
This is what we're going to have.
Here's a guy that inherited $200 million. If he hadn't inherited $200 million, you know where Donald Trump would be right now? Selling watches in Manhattan.
Donald Trump gets into a verbal brawl with his presidential opponents, and he might be getting ready to show up in a San Diego courtroom. You're watching Evening Edition on KPBS. Good evening and thanks for joining us. A shakeup south of the border. Tijuana's police chief resigned suddenly today. A police spokeswoman says he was asked to step down. KPBS Fronteras reporter Jean Guerrero has the story.
It's unclear why Alejandro Lares was asked to leave. Tijuana newspapers say it's because of a spike in homicides. The Tijuana mayor's office declined to comment. In a press release Friday afternoon, Lares said he was resigning because of a perverse media campaign against the police department. He said, "I don't want to be an excuse for dark interests to try to smear the organization which I have served for several years and which I love deeply." The news comes a day after PBS NewsHour ran our story on the Tijuana government's strategy of evicting migrants from the storm drains that hundreds call home. Police raids there sometimes prove fatal as migrants flee onto highways and get hit by cars. Officials could not confirm if Lares' resignation was connected to the story. Last month, Lares told KPBS that petty crimes were down drastically because of the city's approach toward homeless migrants. Jean Guerrero, KPBS News.
San Diego County health officials say the Zika virus has been detected in a San Diego area patient for the first time this year. The woman is believed to have contracted the virus while in Colombia, but was not pregnant and has recovered. Elsewhere in the country, 9 pregnant women are confirmed to have had Zika. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention say they all got the virus overseas. 3 babies have been born, 1 with a brain defect. Researchers are still trying to confirm a link between Zika and microcephaly, a condition causing abnormal smallness in babies' heads. And the Zika virus is mainly spread by mosquitoes and is prevalent in Central and South America as well as in the Caribbean. But infectious disease experts say Zika can also be spread sexually. And while the symptoms of the virus last only about a week, it's been found to survive in semen for up to 2 months.
Now, Zika infection itself is pretty mild, but if the man has sex with a woman who's pregnant or trying to become pregnant, then that can be dangerous.
Doctors are urging men to use condoms if they have recently traveled to countries where the Zika virus is rapidly spreading. Californians are getting ready for an expected price hike at gas stations. GasBuddy.com is warning drivers about it on their smartphone app. Today, KPBS videographer Christopher Maui headed out to the Costco in Mission Valley to talk to drivers filling up before the spike.
I think it's awesome. I remember paying $40-some. I just paid, what, $26? It was 3/4 of a tank, so that's pretty good.
Lots of honking getting in here, but it's good price, so it's worth it.
My husband fills it up on the base, so it's way cheaper there.
We like them low. I mean, price of oil is down, so you would think the gas prices would be down.
Ever since I've been in California, it's been over $3, almost $4. So being in the 2 is really low for here.
I did not hear it was going up, but I saw in this morning's paper, or yesterday's, that there was a Costco in Santee that was only $1.99. So this is at $2.09 or whatever it is. It's a pretty good price.
It's kind of shocking, so you have to go fast, fill it up. You never know when it's going to go back up.
It was $4 close to $5, so probably feeling pretty good right now, but at least the gas prices anyway.
When you look at your receipt and you see that price, that's got to be...
I'm digging it. I love it. I love it. It makes me want to drive.
And today, the average price in San Diego County is $2.37 a gallon for regular and is expected to go up as stations switch to the less polluting summer blend. The Auto Club says refineries are having distribution problems with summer blend gas. Southern California Gas is appealing an order to keep paying for temporary housing for Porter Ranch residents. Those are the people who were forced out of their homes by a months-long gas leak. The company says the leak is over and air quality is back to normal, so the residents should go home. But Los Angeles County officials want more testing first. Apple CEO Tim Cook got a standing ovation today at the first stockholder meeting since the company began its clash with the FBI. Apple is formally challenging a court order to unlock an iPhone that belonged to one of the San Bernardino shooters. Today, the shareholders heard from civil rights leader Jesse Jackson, who says the case makes him think of Martin Luther King.
His home phone was bugged, car, office, and telephone rooms. And hotel room. Went to term he was the enemy. And once you go down this road, the next comes political and enemies list. Mandela just got off the enemies list 4 years after he was dead. I've been on the enemies list. Our organization's phones have been tapped. We deserve better, and those companies that want to protect the integrity of the company itself and the principles of America must stand up and must stand with Tim.
Several major tech companies say they will stand with Tim. Facebook, Google, Twitter, and Microsoft plan to file a joint friend of the court brief to support Apple. Donald Trump has picked up an endorsement from one of his former presidential rivals. Chris Christie says the billionaire will be able to turn Washington around. The endorsement comes a day after a contentious debate between the remaining GOP candidates. Kelly Daschle of the Associated Press has the highlights.
In the most fiery and contentious debate of the presidential primary season so far, the Republican candidates for president squared off Thursday night on everything from immigration to health care to hiring practices.
You acknowledge that, for example, you're the only person on the stage that's ever been fined for hiring people to work on your projects illegally. You hired some workers from Poland.
I'm the only one on the stage that's hired people. You haven't hired anybody.
Well, in fact, some of the people
and by the way,
well, but hold on.
I've hired tens of thousands of people over my job. You've hired
1,000 people
You've
from
had
another
nothing
company,
but problems
from another
with your
country.
credit cards, etc.
Let me say,
with just days to go before the all-important Super Tuesday contests, Senators Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz piled on against frontrunner Donald Trump, looking to blunt his seemingly unstoppable momentum.
In 2013, when I was leading the fight against the Gang of Eight amnesty bill, where was Donald? He was firing Dennis Rodman on Celebrity Apprentice.
This is what we're going to have.
Here's the guy that inherited $200 million. If he hadn't inherited $200 million, you know where Donald Trump would be right now? Selling watches in Manhattan.
I'm wrong. Here's a guy that buys a house for $179,000. He sells it to a lobbyist who's probably here for $380,000, and then legislation is passed. You tell me about this guy.
One of the most contentious exchanges of the night came when Trump mocked Rubio for his poor debate performance in New Hampshire.
I watched him repeat himself 5 times 4 weeks ago. And
I saw you repeat yourself 5 times 5 seconds ago.
I watched him. Melt down on the stage like I've never seen anybody.
I thought he came out of the swimming pool.
I said, well,
let's talk about your plan.
Himself every night. It says 5 things. Everyone's dumb. He's going to make America great again. We're going to win, win, win. He's winning in the polls. And the lines around the state. Every night. Same thing.
The debate was less on policy than a raucous display of insults.
I mean, first of all, this guy's a joke artist and this guy's a liar.
With so much shouting, it was often hard to follow.
Donald claims to care about him.
But he sent me his book with his autograph.
Donald, I understand rules
Mr.
are very
Trump,
hard for you. They're very confusing. Donald, relax.
Go ahead. I'm relaxed. You're the basket case. Go ahead.
As has become the norm in these debates, Ben Carson and Governor John Kasich spent most of the night struggling to break through.
I don't have a response, but I promised Governor Kasich he could respond. Can somebody attack me, please?
Okay, here, Wolf.
The intensified attacks on Trump come at a critical time in this Republican race and reflect a growing fear that if his candidacy is not weakened now, before the mega voting next week, the billionaire businessman may well become the inevitable Republican nominee. Kelly Daschle, Associated Press.
And Donald Trump is on the witness list in a class action lawsuit set for trial in San Diego federal court. The suit claims potential students were defrauded by his now closed Trump University. Trump is listed in court documents as one of the 23 potential witnesses for the plaintiffs. If he was to testify, it would be in May. Trump's lawyers say the case is politically motivated. The no votes on Carlsbad's Measure A are gaining ground as final tallying continues. At last count, just after 3 p.m. today, the no votes were 1,143 ahead. North County Bureau reporter Allison St. John says the trend is towards defeat of the measure.
The latest count shows a continuing trend since the first ballots were counted at 8 p.m. on Tuesday night. The plan to build an upscale shopping centre on the Agua Hedionda Lagoon started nearly 10 points ahead when the results of early mail-in ballots were released. But by the time all the votes cast at the polls were counted, the tide had turned and the no votes were winning by a hair. Since then, the gap has only widened, and it appears that the more votes are counted, the more certain is the defeat. The trend reflects the length of time the developer, Rick Caruso, had to build community support, which showed up in early ballots cast by mail. The opposition had less than 4 months to get their message out after the City Council declared the date of the referendum. But in spite of being outspent 10-1, it appears their turnout at the polls are winning the day. Observers are at the Registrar of Voters' office watching as every vote is counted. 2,250 votes remain. Counting will continue this weekend, and it's possible the registrar will have the final tally on Monday. The developer has not indicated whether he would try a modified version of the project if the measure fails. Allison St. John, KPBS News.
An Air Force base in New Mexico is ending its tour of duty as a temporary shelter for migrant children. Holloman Air Force Base was one of the handful of sites tapped to house children from Central America after a new surge at the border. It was ready to house up to 700, but ended up taking in 129. The last of the children are being reunited with their families today, and the Holloman shelter will go on reserve status. San Francisco's homeless have been given until the end of the day to clear out of a tent city along a busy street. Recently, we gave you a look at those tent cities near the Super Bowl venue. They've been lining a freeway overpass for months, and earlier this week they were declared a health hazard. It's not clear what will happen to anyone who refuses the order to move. New data reveals violent and property crimes are spiking in California, and some lawmakers are blaming voter-approved Proposition 47. The law was passed 2 years ago. It reduced nonviolent crimes such as drug possession and burglary from felonies to misdemeanors. Critics say more than 40,000 low-level criminals were let back out on the streets rather than incarcerated. But Proposition 47 supporters say violent and property crimes have also increased nationwide, not just in the state.
What we need to do is do really good police work and target the areas where that's happening and look at it. But most of the serious and impartial studies that have been done say that none of this is related to Prop 47.
California ranks 6th in the nation for property crimes and 12th for violent crimes. A state senator from San Diego wants to give businesses a tax credit for putting high-risk youth to work. Senator Ben Hueso says the potential employees would be between the ages of 18 and 25, have been previously convicted of a crime, and have been through a work readiness program. Hueso says the program helps end the cycle of poverty by offering businesses a credit against the net tax.
So when they go knocking at the door, they're not turned away, that they walk into the door with an incentive for that business, where we provide that business a qualified employee, but an employee that will also save that business taxes if they're hired.
Hueso says the first 14 months are critical for a convicted felon's transition back into the community. He says a lack of help from the state with a job placement or rehabilitation can increase the chances they might reoffend. California is facing a teacher shortage, and the legislature is responding with a bill to give financial help to students working toward a teaching credential. The Center for the Future of Teaching predicts that California will need 100,000 teachers in the coming years due to retirements and waning interest in the profession.
It's one of the most important jobs in society, educating the future generation. So loan forgiveness is important, helping people enter the teaching career that have a huge amount of student debt, but also looking for creative ways to get people into the workforce that are almost there.
And the people targeted by the legislation are those already working in the classroom, such as teachers' aides, yard duty workers, and cafeteria workers, who may be working towards the teaching career but need financial help.
The Chargers decide they want to go downtown. It looks like Carlsbad's Measure A is going down to defeat. Why was an MTS janitor knocked unconscious because he didn't have an ID? And Joel Anderson drops out of the race against fellow Republican Diane Jacob. It's all on the Roundtable tonight at 8:30 here on KPBS.
Doctors in Cleveland say they performed the first transplant of a uterus ever in the United States. This is a surgery that's already had some success in Sweden, where 5 healthy babies have been born to women who received a donated uterus.
It's a different way of thinking about transplants because we usually think about them as being life-saving for the recipient. If you get a kidney or a heart, it's because you really need a kidney or a heart to survive. With a uterine transplant, this is something that is optional. And it's a lot to go through for something that is optional. So the woman not only is undergoing major abdominal surgery, but also will have to take immune-suppressing drugs to prevent rejection of the organ for as long as she keeps it. Also different is that they would not keep this organ for life. Basically, the idea is that you would have 1 or 2 pregnancies, and then it would be removed so that the woman is not taking those drugs for the remainder of her life.
Doctors say the 26-year-old patient in Cleveland is in stable condition. More than 100 dental professionals will offer free preventive care to kids at community clinics throughout San Diego tomorrow. KPBS health reporter Kenny Goldberg says access to dental care for low-income children is a statewide problem.
A state audit in 2014 revealed less than half of the children enrolled in the Denti-Cal program saw a dentist the previous year. During Saturday's event, volunteers will offer free dental exams, cleanings, and fluoride treatments. Pediatric dentist Parvathy Pokala will be donating her services. She's expecting to see some kids with a lot of cavities.
So we do have a referral service. We can give them options of where they can go to find low-cost dental care or free dental care.
Federal health officials estimate 20% of children ages 5 to 11 have at least one untreated cavity. Kenny Goldberg, KPBS News.
Highway 78 in North County is already dubbed Hops Highway in honor of all the quality craft beer sold there. Now, Oceanside is rethinking its zoning to attract more craft breweries to downtown. This week, the city held a workshop to get community input on a zoning change to allow breweries without restaurants in its commercial downtown. City officials say it may be an economic kickstart for Oceanside. The proposal is expected to go before the City Council by June. The world's largest beer maker wants to open a brew pub in San Diego's East Village. Anheuser-Busch owns 10 Barrel Brewing. The company wants to set up shop at the corner of 15th and E, just across from police headquarters. Members of San Diego's craft brewing community say they're concerned 10 Barrel will try to sell itself as a craft brewer. The business still needs approval from the San Diego City Council before the project can move forward.
I'm Hari Srinivasan. On the next news hour, Judy Woodruff's report from South Carolina, a day ahead of the Democratic primary. That's Friday on the PBS NewsHour.
California water officials are allocating cities and farmers double the amount of water they got last year. Officials have been cutting back water amounts for farmers since 2006.
Increasing the allocation helps farmers plan a little more for the coming year, but probably more helps them plan for next year beyond this.
And doubling the amount of water farmers get this year could be a boon to the state's economy. Farm groups say more water means more crops, which means more hired help on the farms. During this 5th drought year in California, legislators are eyeing recycled water as a possible way to sustain the state's water supply. A bill has been proposed that would allow water agencies to bottle their potable reused water and distribute the samples for educational purposes. Under current law, you can only taste reused water at a recycling facility.
Most people are not drinking any of this water.
Okay. It just doesn't happen in this country, in this state. Right. But around the world, people are drinking this kind of water.
Singapore is one country that has been bottling purified reused water for years. Here in California, the Orange County Water District and the Orange County Sanitation Districts have co-sponsored the potable reused water bill. Both of those districts operate the world's largest advanced water purification system. It's going to be a warm Friday night with temperatures in the 50s in San Diego. KPBS weather reporter Steph Davis has the weekend forecast.
Happy Friday, everyone, and thankfully we do have some beautiful weather to look forward to as we head towards the weekend. Current satellite and radar showing some wet weather off to the north, periods of rain impacting northern California, but the farther south you go across the Golden State, conditions definitely improving, and we're looking at a largely dry forecast. And looking around the San Diego area in specific, you'll notice mainly clear skies here from Chula Vista all the way towards Borrego Springs, and that's thanks to a ridge of high pressure in control. And we do expect this quiet weather pattern to extend throughout our Friday night. So clear skies on tap for Borrego Springs. Your overnight low is 46 degrees. We'll fall back to the mid-30s tonight in Mount Laguna, clear and cooler in Ramona with lows back to the 30s. 45 and quiet tonight in Oceanside, clear skies and comfortable in San Diego with overnight lows in the mid-50s. So if you're heading out and about to enjoy your Friday night, get out there and take advantage of the nice weather because it's looking good as we march throughout the weekend. Looking ahead to our Saturday, should be comfortable across much of the southwest. High pressure in control, allowing for a largely dry weather pattern, plenty of sunshine and mild temperatures across Southern California. So we'll notice daytime highs above average for this time of year. We should be in the mid-60s. We'll see temperatures climbing into the 70s. One thing to note, though, for the weekend is there is a high surf advisory in effect along the beaches of Southern California as issued by the National Weather Service until late Sunday. So if you're heading to the beaches, just want to be careful for that high surf advisory. Here's a look at your 5-day outlook for the coast. The weekend looks beautiful, mix of clouds and sun Saturday and Sunday with daytime highs in the low 70s. Then temperatures really take off as we look ahead to next week. By the time we get into Tuesday and Wednesday, daytime highs will climb to the upper 70s. Your 5-day outlook inland looks very similar. Saturday and Sunday should be nice out there with a mix of clouds and sun and comfortably mild daytime highs. Temperatures really take off as we look ahead to next week. By the time we get into Tuesday, daytime highs inland flirting with 80 degrees. Cooler, but still definitely nice out there in the mountains with widespread temperatures in the upper 60s. A largely dry forecast over the next 5 days with intervals of clouds and sunshine. We'll wrap things up with your 5-day outlook for the deserts. We're going to hit 90 degrees on your Saturday, upper 80s for Sunday and Monday, and we'll trend upwards towards the 90s as we look ahead to the day on Wednesday. Steph Davis, KPBS News.
Okay, now take a look at this wild ride. 22-year-old John Florence riding a 60-foot wave to win the biggest cash prize in big wave surfing. This contest was in Oahu yesterday. Florence is from Hawaii. He says he was kind of nervous before the event and was hoping to get just a couple of waves. Well, he got them, and he got $75,000. Now, if you follow our Cinema Junkie blog, you may already know that KPBS film critic Beth Accomando loves Hammer horror films. In fact, she loves them so much that she just co-curated a year-long monthly film series dedicated to the British studio at the Digital Gem Cinema. Here's a preview.
Color horror films existed before Hammer Films made The Curse of Frankenstein in 1957. But it took the British studio to dial up the saturation so that ruby red lips and crimson blood jump boldly off the screen. If you grew up in the 60s and 70s, then Hammer Films might have given you your first cinematic scare.
Come with us if you dare, into a twilight world of unspeakable horror.
So begins a typical trailer for a Hammer film. There would also usually be blood-soaked title graphics at some point to sensationally play up the horror. For almost 2 decades, starting in the late 1950s, you could count on Hammer for breathtakingly lurid gothic horror tales that served up vampires, werewolves, monsters, and luscious ladies. It turned Christopher Lee into an icon and gave a generation of kids their first taste of terror in bold Technicolor reds that practically dripped off the screen. The Curse of Frankenstein starred Peter Cushing as Victor Frankenstein and the towering Lee as the Doctor's creation. That film would launch the Hammer brand, a brand that would hold strong up into the 1970s. It was followed in quick succession by Horror of Dracula, with Lee as the blood-sucking Count, and The Mummy, in which Lee again played a monster. All of these films and more will play as part of the Get Hammered film series, which will highlight classic Hammer titles every month on select Sundays at 1 p.m. at the Digital Gym Cinema. The series kicks off this Sunday with Christopher Lee in Horror of Dracula. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
And the Get Hammered film series kicks off on Sunday at 1 p.m. at the Digital Gym Cinema. Check for Beth's podcast about Hammer horror at kpbs.org/junkiepodcast. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us. From all of us here at KPBS, have a great weekend, and we'll see you again on Monday. Good night.